Israel has continued its multi-front war against Iran and, of course, Lebanon. They have launched attacks on Lebanon. They've targeted Hezbollah. The war has drawn in key regional players, including Iran, of course, which recently escalated tensions by launching the ballistic missile strike that we saw on Israeli targets. The conflict is spread now to different distinct fronts, including Hamas in Gaza, Hezbollah in Lebanon, Houthis in Yemen, Iran-backed militia in Iraq and Syria, as well as Iran's direct military involvement. Well, meanwhile, Israel has conducted precision strikes in Beirut and launched ground operations in Lebanon and seized military arms. Israel claims to have neutralized over 200 Hezbollah members, including top commanders. Satellite images show Iran moving its tankers and oil vessels from oil rigs to safer locations. Meanwhile, US President Joe Biden discouraged Israel from attacking Iran's oil fields, and on the other hand, former US President Donald Trump criticized Biden's approach, saying he believed a retaliatory strike should be directed at Iran's nuclear sites only. External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar has meanwhile also stated that Middle East is not an opportunity but a cause of great concern as well as deep worry. The big question is, who will play peacemaker in the Middle East? Joining us live at this point is Bhashwati Mukherjee, former diplomat. We also have Major General Sudhakarji, defense expert, live with us. Alok Bansal, foreign affairs expert, is live with us. Ninad Seth, foreign affairs expert, also joins us live. Let me begin with you first, Ambassador Mukherjee. The crisis in the Middle East is, of course, spiraling. Israel has launched precision strikes on targets in Lebanon in the latest updates that have come in, even as the war continues to escalate.
The situation, in fact, Uday, is very worrying. The question is, will Israel draw back after having eliminated the top leadership of Hezbollah or not? The other issue is, as you rightly pointed out, will Israel go in for direct military confrontation with Iran, attack its oil fields and try to take out its nuclear devices which are hidden deep inside a mountain, which is very well secured, but which could perhaps be reached by the bunker bombs that they've been using very effectively in the southern part of Lebanon to take out the Hezbollah leadership. The point here is that there is a Shia-Sunni divide, which is possibly why Israel may be tempted to continue until the results of the US presidential election get known on 6th of November. That would be my hypothesis. They would continue till 6th of November until we know who will be the next US president. It is also very clear that Iran did try very hard to keep itself out of a direct conflict and only got drawn in when Hezbollah's top leaders were taken out, because then it became, as it was earlier, and Captain Alok Bansal, I remember, and myself discussed this in a very interesting discussion. It was a question of not losing face. That is important also in the Middle East on both sides. So even in this.
Okay, I think we've lost Ambassador Mukherjee there, but Major Sudhakarji, why don't you come in on this latest these latest attacks by Israel? What do they mean? Which direction is this conflict now headed?
Uday, thank you. Good evening. Thank you for getting to your show. Before I respond to your question in specific, let me just give a little background, a very quick update. Few days back, Netanyahu had given a speech in the United Nations Assembly, wherein he had words to the effect, not exactly verbatim, he's fighting against two enemies. One is the terrorism and the second one is Iran with the nuclear capability. So if that be the objective, the stated objective of the leader of Israel, then I don't think anything can stop him now to fight against. My take on the entire issue is, yes, the 5th of November is going to be a datum line, which would be one of the primary driving forces, actually driving the ongoing conflict. There is also another datum line, the 7th October, which is just about 2 days from now, let's say. Perhaps this is going to subject the entire ongoing conflict to a spiking situation. And the third one, which I feel important, is that a decisive political and the military aim, which Netanyahu would be looking for, trying to draw in America into the conflict and leverage as much as possible till 5th of November. So what are the objectives that he would be looking for? First and foremost, if I were in his place, perhaps I would put a template of short and medium and long term spectrum. In the short term, I would like to get my people who have been displaced from the northern part of Israel and southern Lebanon, get them back 60, 70,000 people back to the status quo ante, and make sure that all the dangers and the threats which otherwise would have emanated from Hezbollah area across the Blue Line or across the Litani River, they should be absolutely razed to the ground. That should be my primary target. Second, that is no end of terrorism. So terrorism, if I have to look at, there are Iraqi militias, you have Houthis, you have Hamas still, in sprinkling here and there. You have the Islamist jihadis as well. So out of all this put together, if I say, Houthis, they form a formidable kind of a non-state actor who can play Merry Hill along the Red Sea, as also be a real threat to the existential comfort of Israel. So therefore, Netanyahu would be going in hammer and tong for Houthis, followed by Iraqi militia, maybe as an option, concurrently addressing all this. But the issue comes up is Iran going to be drawn in for a direct one-on-one engagement or combat? My take on the whole issue is that a normal conventional or a mix of conventional and hybrid conflict generally has got a continuity of the geography. In the instant case, both the warring factions or the countries are separated by almost about 2,100 kilometers. By the time a ballistic missile is fired from Iran and it hits the target in Israel, the Israeli Iron Domes seek and sensors, they get a reaction time of almost about 20 to 30 minutes. That makes the defensive preparation very, very accurate and formidable, thereby neutralizing all the oncoming missiles coming from Iran or elsewhere. So therefore, my take on the whole issue would be, Iran, if at all is to be tackled, they will be tackled in the following manner. First and foremost would be leadership at different levels. The top class leadership, the political, as also the middle rung and the lower rung leadership. Number two, the military assets, importantly the nuclear asset which Iran has got, but it has got again the serious ramifications of being engaged by the military power. The third and most important thing, I would say, the Iran oil rigs. Iran oil rigs has got a very serious ramification to my mind and understanding. If they are attacked by Israel, then perhaps it is going to boomerang in the entire world order. The oil prices will boom. The complete oil supply from the Persian Gulf, which is approximately 31% of the total global oil and gas supply, is likely to be sabotaged or intercepted at the Strait of Hormuz, which is dominated by Bandar Abbas of Iran. And likewise, it is going to have a telling impact on the supply chain management, as also the price rise of fuel, food, and the fertilizer. Therefore, it is going to be wait and watch. In my opinion, this is a mindless war. No matter what Netanyahu may be thinking, no matter what the world order is thinking, it's about time that we get together, whether the G7 countries getting together at Qatar, with the leading leadership of Iran coming there, trying to galvanize the spirit of unity, bringing about some sense of diplomacy and dialogue. This war or the conflict should be brought to an end as early as possible. Back to you, Uday.
Yes, let me quickly, in fact, also rope in Captain Alok Bansal in at this point. Alok Bansal, the fact, of course, very clearly is that this crisis seems to be just escalating with each passing day. There is still, of course, the retaliation which has been promised against Iran by Israel as well. We don't know quite when, what form that will be in and when that will happen. But meanwhile, their strikes on Hezbollah targets, of course, continuing.
Uday, there is actually this conflict seems to be escalating, and one of the reasons for this is that different actors have different objectives, and those objectives are also changing with the passage of time. On 7th October, when Hamas carried out an attack, I think the global sympathies were with Israel. Israel launched an offensive in Gaza, which will now complete 1 year. Significantly, this particular long-drawn conflict, Prime Minister Netanyahu had an objective that he did not wish to relinquish power, and he felt that this unending conflict would help him bolster his position. But subsequently, when he attacked Hezbollah by the pager bombs and then eliminated Nasrallah, his approval ratings within Israel have shot up significantly. So unlike in the earlier zone, when for 1 year he was fighting Gaza without when the domestic opinion was against him and continued to be against him, this conflict has actually bolstered his approval ratings. As I said, Iran's retaliatory attack came at a time when Iran has a president who's reformist. He wants good relations with the West and the US. And as a result, but you need to understand that the domestic opinion in Iran wants some reaction, because all Iran's allies from Hezbollah to Houthis to Hamas have been targeted. And consequently, I think the Iranian attack on Israel was, to my mind, a face-saving device for Iran, which was provided to it by the United States, because President Biden, I think, wanted a good relations with Iran. And at the time of presidential elections, they would not want the conflict to get escalated, because that will create a problem for the Democrat nominee and the Vice President Kamala Harris. On the other hand, Donald Trump would actually get benefited if this conflict escalates, because Democrats will find it difficult to take sides, and they would antagonize one or the other section of their support base. And consequently, the last attack by Iran, if you remember, hours ago, they actually informed the Israelis that the attack is coming, and they were given adequate notice where they could hide, get into the shelters. And as a result, if you see in Israel, the damage was minuscule. But on the other hand, if you go and see the Iranian media, what they have propagated to their domestic opinion is that there has been large-scale destruction, including Mossad headquarters and offshore gas facilities and all that. Now, the ball is in Israel's court. Israel has effectively been targeting Hezbollah, Houthis inside the occupied West Bank also. They have actually carried out attacks. But US is actually trying that this thing should remain within limits. But Netanyahu personally would not want a Democrat victory. He would prefer a Republican victory in US presidential election. So one is never sure. He may take steps which might escalate the conflict further. Now that could happen because the Israeli retaliation on Iran will again bring back another retaliation. Now, how effective is Israeli retaliation? That would actually create a next set of problems for the Middle East as a whole. Because if Israel successfully manages to eliminate Iranian leadership, then there will be massive transformation in Iran. Of course, Donald Trump is saying that they should target, Israel should target their nuclear facilities. I'm not sure if that is feasible, because most of Iran's nuclear facilities are underground and adequately protected. And Iran is not next door. While it is feasible for Israel to target targets within Iran, but it's not be able to carry out massive strikes in Iran, because it will need to refuel and do all those actions which will require limited attack over a point target. So that's what I'm trying to say. Now, next course of action, how bad this situation will come, we'll come to know in next few days, maybe in next 24 hours, next 48 hours. But I have always believed that the Iranian attack on Israel was nothing but an attempt by the US to provide them with a fig leaf to mask, to assuage their domestic opinion within Iran.
Yes. Let me quickly, in fact, rope in Ninad said in at that point as well on the the way forward of this conflict, because as our previous speaker said, that de-escalation right now is not looking likely. In that extent, which area do you believe is going to see the most profound impact of the current conflict? Where do you believe right now Israel is going to concentrate the fighting in?
This is a question.
Ninad Seth, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yes.
So the escalation metrics now lies with Tel Aviv. It is very important to understand that Iran does not control the escalation metrics. The options for Israel are the following. The first is, an attack on the island. I think it's called the Kurg Island, which does 80% of the, Iranian oil. The second is to go up and attack the nuclear installation. The third is to radically do what they did with Hezbollah. I think we have to bear in mind that Hezbollah's leadership being eliminated almost at will is a radical development. However, this is a state. It is not a non-state actor. It is not the same thing. It's a revolutionary state with revolutionary capacity to absorb pain. Iran, also has another problem that it is discovering that it's in any boxing match you have to have a good uppercut. You need to have good reach. You need to be able to box very well, but you need a good neck too. Now Iran has no air force or air defense to speak of. That exposes it in the event of an Israeli retaliation. Lastly, it's very important to realize that this is also a result of the vacuum and lack of American power. Back in the day, during the Suez Canal crisis, Eisenhower had threatened United Kingdom that we will not be drawn into a war and ended the whole thing. Biden doesn't probably even know where this is happening at the minute. So, the American inability, therefore, to beyond a point force Israel's hand limits any diplomatic possibilities. It is also for Iran, there are three other problems. The first is Iran is discovering that it has no allies. Being a Shia power, it may rule 2/3 of Iraq. It has done very, very well. The rise of the Shia has been the less talked of, result of the Bush intervention in the Middle East. But now suddenly that power is looking very shaky, and Saudi Arabia has a lot to gain from a weakened Iran. So I think that is one problem. Finally, I think the Ayatollahs are discovering that it is one thing to kill unarmed women not wanting to wear hijab on the streets and taking on Israel.
Yes, let me now go back across to Ambassador Mukherjee. Ambassador Mukherjee, we had of course lost you at some point during your opening comments, but which way do you see this conflict headed? Also, what do you believe is going to be India's position going forward as well? Of course, the latest comment has come in from External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar, where he said such conflicts are not opportunities but are causes of great concern, and the more a conflict like this goes, the more things get worse for the world at large.
Well, Uday, can you hear me now?
Yes.
So we would definitely prefer de-escalation, and we are fully aware that an attack on Iran's oil fields would in fact cause a major energy crisis, global energy crisis, where the developing countries and the global south would be deeply affected. On the other hand, we are fully aware that Iran's weakness, as has just been pointed out by my last co-panelists, lies in the fact that actually its air defenses are non-existent. Its nuclear facilities, I'm told, are very well protected by my colleagues who served as ambassadors there. But its oil facilities are more difficult, are much more vulnerable to direct attack. The question here is, how far will Netanyahu go to ensure a Trump victory? Because people are speculating that he is also doing this, encouraged by Trump, so as to ensure a Trump victory on 6th of November when the results will be declared. Because definitely, if the war results in a global energy crisis, the Democrats will find themselves in a very difficult position, and the Vice President, who is the nominee, cannot just pretend and say that, this is not my problem or I am not part of the solution, because she is very much the Vice President of the United States of America. So I think it's a very volatile situation. I don't think there is much that India can do. There is much that the United States could have done if they were in a position to do so. But since they have a president who is clearly not in charge, and a presidential election that is neck to neck right now, even in states which earlier had a couple of points ahead for Kamala Harris, is neck to neck, actually an Israeli escalation could ensure a Trump victory. And that is the problem actually for the global community, including India, that we find ourselves in a dilemma, because this war is closely being monitored by Trump and by Netanyahu, and perhaps Netanyahu is taking steps to ensure Trump's victory in the American election. That is an imponderable that we need to think about. Uday.
Yes, let me take that to Alok Bansal as well. Alok Bansal, what is the Indian viewpoint on the escalation of this conflict and you know, the nature also of it now, and also the length that this war has taken, and going forward, you know, do you believe that also you know, Lebanon is now going to be the main area of concentration of Israel's aggression, or do you believe this war is spreading and we cannot say because things are too fluid currently?
As far as we are concerned, there is no doubt that we would definitely want de-escalation, because we have very good relations with Israel. We have huge defense and technological cooperation with Israel. On the other hand, Iran is extremely significant for us. Please understand, Iran provides us the access to Central Asia, Trans-Caucasus, Caucasus, all these regions, which is very, very important. And more importantly, Iran today has the capability to disrupt traffic in and out of Persian Gulf. Iran can easily block Persian Gulf and close it for a few months. And please understand, more than oil or oil products or hydrocarbons, we need to understand that more than 50% of the remittances that India receives, and which is well over $100 billion, comes from this particular part of the world. Where if there is an economic upheaval in this part, this valuable source of foreign exchange will dry up for us. So there is no doubt that the conflict escalation for us is definitely a no-no. Now, as far as US is concerned,
Yes,
as Ambassador Aswati Mukherjee said rightfully, that Netanyahu would want a Trump victory. And for that reason, he may like to escalate the conflict at the right moment. That's quite feasible. Americans would want that Netanyahu should continue to pursue his conflict in Lebanon and keeps it restricted there and does not expand it to Iran or other areas. Lebanon in any case is going to be the arena of conflict in next few days.
Okay.
We would see conflicts in Lebanon, where and Lebanon in any case has
I'm afraid we've run completely out of time, so we'll have to leave it at that. My thanks to all of our guests for joining us.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.